Hi everybody, welcome to another Britain's Best B-roads. Today we are going from Braidwood to Blackwood, so that's easy to remember. We're going along the B7056 and to Crossford, then we'll go along the A73 Crossford to Hazelbank. That's the same road that we went on in the last video. The reason for that is this is another great road along the Clyde Valley, and B, we're in level 4 lockdown in this area, so we can't go any further afield than here, but that's fine because these roads are great. So Hazelbank, and then we're going to turn up onto the B7086, and that'll take us up to Blackwood, and then you can join junction 8 of the M74 at that point. So right now we're just coming down the side of the Clyde Valley from Braidwood. Then the A73, like last time, drives along the side of the Clyde, and then the road to Blackwood goes back up the other side of the valley. So you're climbing down the hill and then back up the hill, lots of zigs and zags. So a lovely road, and we've got a beautiful winter's morning, early winter morning, to drive this road, which is great. So the car that we're doing it in today is a 2017 Porsche Macan GTS. Now, most Porsche Macans that you'll see on the road are the 3 litre diesel, and they're very nice cars, SUVs. This is something very different. Now most people, it's a bit of fun here, back to sport, most people's views of the Porsche Macan is it's just a expensive Audi Q5. It's true, it does have the same underpinnings, and the GTS is just body trim, body kit, interior trim, some fancy bits and pieces like that. It's not really anything substantial. But this car is different. Actually, when the Macan was designed, the GTS spec was the first one that they designed. Everything else is a derivative from that, either tuned up in terms of the turbo or down in terms of the S. The reason I love this car is because it takes all the things that I thought I didn't like about a car and throws them right out the window. So, for example, this has a 3 litre petrol V6 twin turbo. Now, I didn't think I liked turbo cars. I prefer natural aspiration. Superchargers are okay, but turbochargers, they tend to have turbo lag. You get very little in the way of power up until 2,500 revs, then this wave of power hits you, and then it's tapped out by about 5,000 revs. So it gives a very unequal, unlinear power delivery. This isn't particularly nice to drive. The reason that happens, because of the way the turbo works. If you think there's 2 chambers, one where exhaust gases go out and one where cool air intake air comes in. Now as the exhaust gas goes out through that chamber, this is us now in Crossford, as exhaust gases go out through that chamber, it turns a little impeller, and that impeller is on the same shaft as an impeller on the cool air intake side, so that's sucking cool air into the engine push more air into the cylinders, which allows you to inject more petrol into the cylinders to keep the same air-fuel mixture ratio. And that gives you a bigger bang because you've got more petrol and air detonating inside the cylinder. But the problem with that is, by its very nature, there has to have been enough exhaust gases passing out of the engine to turn that impeller before enough compressed air is going into the engine to make a difference. So you have to be up at 2,500 odd revs usually before you get the benefit of a turbo. This engine was specifically tuned to feel naturally aspirated. I don't know how they've done it, obviously very clever people, but it feels naturally aspirated. It picks up from 1,600 revs all the way to 4,000, but then somehow at 4,000, even though the turbo's pretty much capped out, then the normal engine power picks back up. Maximum power is produced at 6,000 revs. Just 360 brake horsepower, 369 foot-pound of torque, and it revs all the way to 6,800. That's another normal drawback of a turbo engine, is that they don't rev particularly high. One of the reasons for that is to avoid something called knock, also known as premature detonation. So we've all been there, so I don't have to explain it. When the pressure and the heat gets too much, the explosion happens before it's meant to, and then when the spark plug does go, any unburnt fuel and air mixture then detonates again, so you get this horrible shuddering sensation, or knocking as it's called. And that happens because with a turbo you're pushing more air into the engine, creating more pressure, a bigger explosion than would normally be in the cylinder. So many ways they stop that from happening, but one of them is to stop the engine revving quite as high, reduce the load. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, go back to talking about the car in a minute. One thing I forgot to mention about this road, this is the road we were on last time. It's a crazy story. One of the large houses that was on the Lockert estate, which is over on that side of the River Clyde that we're driving on now, was called Milton Lockert. Milton Lockert, built early 19th century, started to fall into disrepair, dilapidation in the early 80s, as many big country houses have over the years. A Japanese actor saw the house, fell in love with it, fell in love with all the history of this area, history of Walter Scott being here, etc. Okay, this is us now turning off the A73. There's a tricky little turn. Go right down into first gear for it. Saw the castle, or country house, fell in love with it. They obviously had a few pennies to his name, this boy. But where most people, I think, would say, I really loved that castle, I would like to recreate it back in Japan. No. This person decided he wanted that house. And so he set about dismantling the house and transporting it brick for brick, 9,000 miles, to Japan. Not kidding. It had to go on the Trans-Siberian Railway. He had to get special permission from Mikhail Gorbachev to transport this through Russia, through Siberia. It was crazy. And now, Milton Lockert sits about 2 hours drive north of Tokyo. What a beautiful day we're getting. The scenery is absolutely gorgeous today. Sits about 2 hours drive north of Tokyo, and amongst other things is home to one of the world's largest Santa model collections as a Santa museum. This guy is obviously quite unique, I would say. Anyway, back to the car. So, turbo. I'd take a better driver than me to be able to feel that this car even has turbos. It's incredible the way it delivers its power. The other thing I thought I didn't like about cars is automatic gearboxes. Now, it depends on the type of car, obviously. If you're in an old Rolls Royce Silver Ghost, probably makes sense to just stick it and drive and be done with it. But for anything with sporty pretensions, the idea of an automatic gearbox I thought was a complete waste of all the hard work that's gone into creating the chassis and the handling. But this is Porsche's double clutch gearbox, PDK, 7-speed, and it is sensational. It really is incredible. If you just put it in drive, what the double clutch system does is it tells by the way you're driving what gear you want next. So if you're starting to slow down or you're putting your foot on the brake, it'll select the gear one lower than where you are, or if you're starting to speed up, it'll select a higher gear, or if you're putting the foot down flat, obviously it'll give you the kick down to go down a couple of gears in anticipation. Now, what the clutch then does is it's already engaged that next gear. So if you're driving predictably, then it will feel extremely smooth. If you click it over and use the flappy paddles, they are lightning quick. They really are. The first versions of the PDK weren't quite as good as this. They've made big improvement, and it is an absolute joy to drive. It's not quite as involving as, say, the 944 with the manual gearbox, where you can double clutch, etc., and really feel completely engaged with what's going on. And the other thing with any flappy paddle automatic gearbox is sometimes you forget what gear you're in. I hope that's not just me. When you've manually moved the gear into place, you remember where you put it, even if your hand's not still on it. Whereas with flappy paddles, if you're looking ahead, you can sometimes forget what gear you're in. So it just takes a little bit of extra training to remember to look down at the readout so you know what gear you're in. But other than that, it's an incredible system. And also the notion of an SUV with that's trying to be a sports car. Come on, this car's 2 tons. It is a big car. It's not a sports car. When Evo magazine reviewed this car, the headline was "Physics Defying Fun," and I think they got that absolutely spot on, because it doesn't feel like it's 2 tons. It's got Porsche's adaptive stability management PASM suspension setup. It has huge wheels on it. This is the optional 21-inch standards on the GTS were 20. It's got 265, 40s at the front, 295, 35s at the back. Huge tyres. So it is absolutely planted. Oh, is that a buzzard or a kestrel? Good morning. It has the brakes from the turbo, 360mm rotors at the front, 6-pot calipers. So the stopping distance in this, the highway code says that stopping from 60 to 0 should take 180 feet. This car does it at 105. It's 2 tons. It sounds absolutely fabulous. This is just the standard GTS 4-tip exhaust that's on it, and it sounds brilliant. Not to 60, about 5 seconds. I would say this could well be the perfect car for roads like these, where they're a bit rutted, a few potholes, etc. Better ground clearance for when we do get some snow. I just think this is a fabulous car. It drives like a sports car. Weight distribution, 56 at the front, 44 to the rear. It's not perfect, but it's not bad for a front-engined car. Turning right here and heading back down onto the M74 cut-off now. So that's us, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, please share, please subscribe. More videos coming along shortly. See you next time. Bye bye.